Well, yesterday, or arguably this week, the event certainly lasted a hell of a lot longer than a week, is the anniversary of the Exxon Valdez disaster up north, up in Alaska, where BP was actually supposed to be responsible for cleaning this thing up, and they weren't ready for it, just like they weren't ready for it in the Gulf. Surprise, surprise. And my old friend and just an absolutely brilliant political commentator, blogger, and host of the TV show More Up North, although her name was Moore, Shannyn Moore, Shannyn, Moore.com is Shannon's website. Shannyn Moore, welcome back to the program.
Oh, it's so lovely to talk to you, Tom. How are you?
I am great, and I hope you are well.
I am. I'm well enough. It's really, yeah.
Yeah,
I appreciate you so much paying attention to this remarkable anniversary that, of the Exxon Valdez spill.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I got to say, it's been way too long since Louise and I have been up there in Anchorage and hung out all night long in the midnight sun with you and family and friends. It was the last time was just so nice. I hope everybody is doing well. But many of our listeners and viewers may be new to you. You were a fisherman?
I was a fish witch.
Fish witch? Okay.
I started commercial fishing in 1978 with my family, and I was a part of the herring fishery on a 100-foot boat when the Exxon Valdez happened.
Right. So that whole it's not a form of life, a way of life. That whole way of life has been devastated by Exxon Valdez, has it not?
It has been for a lot of reasons. Right after the spill, I mean, you know how huge Alaska is, and the fish markets crashed for areas of Alaska that weren't even affected by the spill, that were thousands of miles away. People, fishing for salmon, but the markets were devastated for years there, where people were like, well, what you don't have to put oil in the pan to fry salmon anymore, and so that affected the whole fishery for a while, but definitely the areas, the 1,300 miles of coastline that was affected, and the herring fishery that never returned to Prince William Sound, and the birds that never returned, or they tried, but because of all the chemicals used, their shells wouldn't hold together when they sat on them, so the birds aren't there. And what it did to communities, there was never the need for shelters for battered women. There was this huge frustration level that happened because Exxon just kept stringing Alaska along, and they strung us along for 20 years, appealed every court decision up to the Supreme Court, and it was decided, 20 years after the fact that they would pay 10 cents on the dollar for damages.
That's insane. That's obscene. And they destroyed people's lives.
And they still owe the state of Alaska $92 million in settlements, but the governor that we have now, who is far worse than Sarah Palin ever was, Sean Parnell, is a former ConocoPhillips lobbyist and Exxon attorney.
Oh, geez.
And he hasn't insisted that that Exxon pay up the $92 million.
So what's the state of the Alaska coastline now?
Well, Alaska has more coastline than the rest of the United States combined.
Right.
So,
but the area where the Exxon Valdez,
the area where it happened, they like to say that it's pristine, but you can see BP is running ads saying that it's never been better in the Gulf.
Right.
But I went there for the BBC on an assignment a couple years ago, and I took a shovel out to Night Island, which is an island that was just devastated, and I thought I would have to dig down, but my boot prints just filled up with oil sheen within 60 seconds of walking across the marsh there, and so it was.
Wow. It's
still very much there, and it's not going to go away. I mean, you can't clean up an oil spill.
And it's even worse in the north, where biological stuff happens more slowly than in a warm environment like the Gulf.
Exactly.
So where do you go from here, Shannyn? We're talking with Shannyn Moore, by the way, the commentator, blogger, the host of the TV show More Up North. Her website, Shannyn Moore, ShannynMoore.com. And her Twitter is at Shannyn, ShannynMoore. Where do y'all go from here?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, at this point, I think when the BP Gulf disaster happened, it added such an insult to injury for so many Alaskans who had just been drugged through the oil here, which is that nobody's learned any of the lessons that they should have. BP just figured out how to screw people over better than Exxon did in Alaska. And, the oil spill cleanup is the exact same technology as it was in 1989. And you look at, I just wrote an article about this whole experience, and I look at, in 1989, I had an SE Mac Plus that weighed like 15 pounds and was black and white, and now I've got an iPhone I'm talking to you on. And that technology has been just like insanely incredible, but we're still looking at the stupid diapers and booms, and they just get out there and push it around, and then they spray all sorts of chemicals that really, really physically hurt the people there. And the average life expectancy for someone that worked on the Exxon Valdez spill is 51. And
wow.
The diseases, and it's so crippling, where it puts holes in your brain. It basically disperses your brain matter.
So
like
this should be a lesson for
oil.
the people down in the Gulf of Mexico, too.
Right.
Look
And,
out.
the longer they wait to get settlements, they don't even know what they're owed yet because the damages, I think, are so long-ranging. But the longer it goes, the more despair that happens and the more suicides that happen. There have already been suicides in the Gulf, and we're the same percentage of Gulf people to kill themselves from frustration of an oil spill. As Alaska, you would be looking at 45,000 people.
Wow. This is a bad story. Shannyn Moore, you can read all about it over at her website, Shannyn Moore, ShannynMoore.com. Thanks, Shannyn.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Oh, also, ShannynMoore.wordpress.com.